What's going on, everybody? I'm Average Joe and welcome to another Average video. Alrighty, in today's Average video, we are going to be taking a look at EcoWorthy's brand spanking new Alrighty, in today's Average video, we are going to be taking a look at EcoWorthy's brand spanking new version 3 of their 100 amp hour server rack battery. We're going to kind of do a comparison between version 2 and version 3 and see what the differences are. Alrighty, let's get to it. Alright, we're going to start our comparison right meow. So the upper battery is going to be version 2 and the lower battery is going to be the brand new one, version 3. Both of them have the EcoWorthy logo right in front. Both say 51.2 volts, 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. Both of them are going to have 2 negative and 2 positives. However, on version 3, those have swapped. Now, I'm not 100% sure why they swapped these around other than most other server rack batteries that you can get. The positive is typically on the left-hand side. One other thing that I'm seeing right now is the way the terminals are designed. On version 2, you can see the screws right here are visible, and on version 3, you can see they have built up the terminals quite a bit, so the screws are now countersunk and you can't actually short anything out if you install your battery cables the opposite way. They both have a 125 amp Chint brand circuit breaker. However, on version 3, you can see we have a Chint brand shunt trip breaker. This is kind of a nice new feature. Both of them have the power button right in the center, and really the only thing that I can see different over here in the communication area is going to be our address dip switches right here. Version 3 has 6 dip switches and version 2 only has 4. The main difference between having 6 versus 4 is how many batteries you can parallel together and have communication. Version 3 can now parallel up to 32 batteries versus version 2, which is, I actually don't remember offhand, but I'll put it right up on the screen. All right, I think that is pretty much all the differences between version 3 and version 2, other than the thickness of the server rack battery. So version 2 is a little bit thinner than the new version 3. If we take a measuring tape, version 3 is basically 5 3/4, and version 2 is just a little bit shorter at 5 3/8 inches. Other than that, that is basically the differences on the outside. So since we're comparing version 2 to version 3, we might as well compare all the accessories that come with each battery. So everything on the upper side is going to be version 2, everything down here is going to be version 3. Version 2 gives you a little tiny card how to install your battery cables. Next thing over is going to be your quick start app guide, and then next one is going to be your battery manual. You're going to get 2 side handles right here. Again, I'm not sure why people keep saying that these batteries do not come with handles, because they do. I obviously have 2 of them sitting right here. Next thing over is going to be your battery cables. So we get a positive and negative, and these are 2 AWG, and these are the flexible silicone type, and they are rated for 200 degrees Celsius. And of course, both ends have a hex crimped battery cable lug. Next over is going to be your ground wire with a ground screw. Next over is going to be your battery communication port if you are paralleling batteries together. You're going to get 4 M8 bolts. You're going to get 2 red and 2 black battery terminal covers. And version 2 also came with 2 pieces of red and black heat shrink for whatever you're on to. Accessories for version 3. So starting over here on the left, you're going to get a little card that tells you why they built the battery the way they did. Next one over is going to be a user companion software guide. Again, this is going to tell you how to connect to the Bluetooth app and all that kind of stuff. But if you really wanted to see all that, you could just check out the other video that I did on version 2. You're also going to get a battery manual, which is basically going to give you most everything that you need to know about the battery. All right. And looky here, looks like we have 2 side handles. I don't know why people keep saying that they don't come with handles, because they do. They're right here on the top. You're also going to get all the screws to attach those. You're going to get a battery positive and negative, basically the same thing. These are the flexible silicone type, and they are 2 AWG, and they're rated for 200 degrees Celsius. Nicely hex crimped on both ends. You're going to get a ground cable along with the ground screw, a communication cable if you're paralleling batteries together. You're going to get 4 M8 hex bolts for your battery terminals right there, and then you're going to get 2 red, 2 black battery terminal covers. Both of them did come with the certificate saying they passed their quality control check. So the main differences between these two, of course, is the manual version. This is 2.1.1. Right up here it is version 1.1. The app quick start guide up here is just a quick start guide. Here it's an actual book, and then this little card right here. Next difference is going to be the battery cable length. Version 2 are just slightly longer than version 3 right down here. And also version 3 did not come with the heat shrink. And that is pretty much the differences between version 2 and version 3. And if we have a quick look at the manuals, this is version 2, this is going to be version 3, and the manual version up here is 1.1. One over here is version 2.1.1, and the number down here is slightly different. This is BV1-1, and right over here is BV2.0. And if we flip open to page 8 in both manuals, all of the voltage ranges, etc., are going to be the same for version 2 and version 3. And if we flip over to page 9 on both manuals, this is going to be the dimensions, the weight, etc. So weight for version 2 is 94.8 and version 3 is 97 pounds. The charge and discharge rates for version 2 and 3 are identical. The main thing that's different right here is your max parallel number. Like I mentioned earlier, this one is 15 in parallel. Version 3 is going to be 32 in parallel. Pretty much everything is the same except for in version 3 manual, it actually lists out all the BMS parameters. Alrighty, now your next question is if you already have version 2 and you do want to get version 3 and you do communications, do they communicate together? The answer is yes. So right now I've got the upper battery, which is version 2. This is going to be the master battery. So I have the dip switches right here. Number 1 is up and on, and then version 3 right down here. The second dip switch is up and on. If we take a look at the app, this is going to be battery version number 2. We can see that right in the center. The last 2 numbers are A44. All right, that's the MAC address that we're connected to. We're going to go down to pack data on the lower left-hand corner. This is going to be our real-time data. Okay, same thing as the last video. It gives you all the, all the information about the battery. If you want to switch over to version 3 or battery pack number 2, we're going to go up into the right-hand corner, the top right-hand corner, and we're going to select pack 2 right here, and then it will switch over to pack 2. So now you can see it changed over to 60% state of charge, and then again all the your normal usual information and stuff going on down here. So yes, communication works just fine. All right, next thing we're going to do is take off the top of battery 2 and battery 3, open them up, take a look at the inside, and see what the differences are. Boom, got the covers off, and I'm going to try to do my very best to try to figure out what the differences are between version 2 and version 3. So version 2 is going to be on the left, version 3 is going to be on the right. So one thing that I can see right off the bat, version 2 is using the flat bus bars, and version 3 is using the bus bars with the little hump in the center. So what that actually does is it creates a little less stress on the battery terminals where they're welded together if these batteries do expand or contract. And then the next thing that I saw that was a little bit different would be these rails that go across the top of the battery. So version 2 is basically a C shape or a U shape, and version 3 is the same shape, but it has the little wings on the side, so they are a little bit thicker. So this one's going to be a little bit stronger. And then the next thing would be if we go over here to this side. If you remember in my last video I talked about the fish paper right over here. It is sticky, but it just kind of falls off. On version 3 they're actually using the epoxy board, but there's also the fish paper right behind it. So it's kind of like doubly protection, and that goes all the way around the battery. All right, the next thing I wanted to see if they changed it is this piece of metal that goes down here. On other server rack batteries that I've seen, that piece of metal down there goes all the way up to the top, hugging the cells all the way around. We look in battery version number 3, it's basically the same. It does not come all the way up to the top to hug the cells. Again, it's probably not that necessary, but I've just seen that's a difference in other server rack batteries. Again, they're using 2 8-gauge silicone wires right here, just the same as they did in version 2. And I tried peeling this one back, but I couldn't get it back far enough, but I'm pretty sure it's the exact same as version 2 over here. And that was, I'm pretty sure it was a 5 or a 6. So yeah, it's pretty much the same. If I take a look at the lug number size right here, it's actually a number 6. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so those are the same. Can't really tell if there's anything down there different on the bottom versus number 2. They're probably about the same. I mean, they might look a little bit different since the negative and positive are on different sides. So the negative wires over here are a little bit shorter. Negative wires over here are going to be a little bit longer. Vice versa for the positive, they're going to be shorter on this side, you know, longer on that one. So that's not really much of a difference there. So the connections over here, there's no glue on any of these. On version 3, they have glue on all the connections. Focus, focus. All right, down there, they don't have glue coming out of the circuit breaker. I know it's not in focus, but I can't get it in focus. That's okay. All right, just rotated the battery so the BMS is towards us. So I was going to take a look at that and see if we can see any sort of difference. So this is going to be version 2 right over here. And again, I'm probably honestly not going to be able to tell a difference because to me, it's just a circuit board. But I don't know, maybe there's something different in here that we'll be able to see. Yeah, circuit board with circuits on it. We'll move over to version 3 over here. I mean, we already mentioned everything having glue on it, so I guess that's a good upgrade. Nothing's going to fall out. Oh, this connection right here is different. Okay, so this one doesn't have anything connected to that. I wonder what that goes to. Ooh, I bet it goes to that shunt trip breaker. Yes, it does. Okay, you're not going to be able to see it very well, but down here, those wires go down to the shunt trip breaker. That's where those wires go to. So maybe, I mean, that's how it's supposed to work, is it's supposed to be able to trip the circuit breaker for you, all right, and shut everything down. So maybe we'll have to figure out how we can test that. All right, well, there you go. I'm not really seeing too many other differences. I guess the main ones that I could see would be the bus bars, the rails, the epoxy going around all the cells, and then all the wires and stuff are glued in, you know, to the circuit board and stuff over here. That's pretty much the main differences that I can see. Now, if you guys happen to see something that I didn't see, make sure you post that down in the comment section. Okay, so I guess the next thing I'll do real quick is I'll pull off one of these rails so we can try to scan one of the cells and we can see, you know, see if there's a difference in the cells. All right, so if I lift up this paper very carefully, we do have a QR code underneath here. Oh, it did scan. All right, so we are using REPT cells, and it doesn't really have any other information other than lithium iron phosphate, which we already know. Production date was 3/27 in 2005, so that's nice. They're nice and new. Number of cells produced. Holy crap. 406,523. That is, holy crap, that is a lot. So there shouldn't be any shortages of these server rack batteries for some time, I would imagine. That's pretty much all the information that we get. I believe these ones over here were the EVE cells. So, in my opinion, REPT cells are just as good. I guess that's pretty much all we got. The next thing we can do is a capacity test. All right, I literally just missed the end of this capacity test, and when I was sitting over there editing the video, I heard a snap or a crack. It was actually the shunt trip breaker flipped the main breaker off, so it completely shut down the entire battery. I think that is fan-freaking-tastic. All right, anyway, let me see if I can turn this thing back on. Okay, go over to history. Ooh, look at that. We only got 99 amp hours, but we did get 5.1 kilowatt hour. So let me take a snapshot of that. So this is the battery that I didn't do any special balancing or anything like that. It was just however it came. But on battery 2, I did go in there and manually top balance basically every single cell. We should get a little bit better result. Well, the inverter shut off first. which sucks. So for this test, we got 105 amp hours, or 5.4 kilowatt hour. And the battery still has a little bit left in it. The voltage is bouncing back just a little bit. On here, it says we did 107.61. So I'm not sure whichever one you want to call accurate, but what I do like to see is this number did change from 100 to 107.61. Nice. We're on battery capacity test number 2 for this battery. And so far we have pulled 103 amp hour and 5.3 kilowatt hour, and we are still going. Boom, there we go, 105 amp hour, 5.4 kilowatt hour. Lowest cell was 15 at 2.549. Look at that, on here we got 107.63 amp hours. So it did update to the newest capacity test. Nice. All right, so basically the inverter shut off first and the battery is still going. So we had just a tiny amount left in the battery. Yes, slightly higher, but we'll get to that in just a second. I was gonna go over all of the changes and stuff real quick, just in case you're the impatient type that just skipped to the end of the video for pros, cons, you know, all that kind of stuff. So start with the changes on the outside. So the terminals on the outside, the battery positive and negative terminals, are drastically improved. They now no longer have the exposed mounting screws around the outside. So if you happen to turn your battery cables around and mount them, you know, with this part facing towards the batteries, you no longer have the option to short everything out. So that is a really good improvement. I'm really glad they did that, and people can't accidentally or purposely short out their off-grid system. The next thing is they swapped the battery terminal positives and negatives to the other side. I did contact Isgrigg-Diy and they told me they did that just to kind of conform to kind of like the industry standard. The standard that everybody else seems to do is the positive are on the left-hand side, negative are on the right-hand side. But for me, I don't know if I would have actually changed that, because if you already have a system using these batteries right now, version 1 and version 2, and you want to upgrade to version 3, I mean, they're on the other side. So now you're going to have to get longer battery cables to parallel your batteries together. Or if you're using a server rack battery and you have the bus bars going up and down the sides, you know, you just have your battery cables going over to the bus bars. Now you're going to need longer cables to, you know, cross over to the other side. So for me, I don't know if I would have gone to the industry standard. I think I would have just left it the same. But here is one recommendation that I would have. Here's my cat, he might try to help me, is don't flip them upside down. I was on the Isgrigg-Diy website and I looked through the reviews, and somebody did actually flip their server rack batteries upside down and put them in a server rack just so they could match the EG4 batteries that they already have. These batteries are not designed to be used upside down, so please don't do that. If you're the person in that review, please pull those out and flip them over and use longer cables, please. Moving on, next thing is the shunt trip breaker. I think that is actually a pretty nice improvement. Now, there's nothing that you can do, you know, manually, you know, inside any of the apps or anything like that to control it. It's all going to be controlled through the BMS, and I think it's mainly controlled, you know, if you hit like a low cell cutoff, which I did do for battery number 1, I just missed it. And then it's probably going to trip for a few other things like overcurrent, you know, the normal things. But it is nice that they added a shunt trip breaker. Right, buddy? That's right. All right, the next thing they changed would be the dip switches. They are not using the 4 dip switches. They are now using 6 dip switches. And all that basically allows you to do is parallel more batteries, you know, with communication. So now you can do 32 versus 15 in the previous version. Next thing is going to be the thickness of the server rack battery. That is basically because they're using REPT cells, and those are, I'm just guessing, a little bit taller than the previous EVE cells. All right, and I think that's pretty much everything for the outside. So on the inside, the first change would be the bus bars. They're not using the flat bus bars anymore. They have gone to the bus bars with the hump in the center. Of course, that's going to allow for any sort of battery expansion or contraction, and it's going to allow a little less stress on those battery terminals on the top of the cells. Next one is going to be the top rails. It's just a slider improvement. It has little wings on the side. They're just a little bit stronger. And then the last one that I noticed is all the wiring to the BMS, you know, and all the other places. They are now using the silicone glue to keep those attached. And I think that is pretty much everything that I could find. I didn't see really anything else. They're still using the 2 8-gauge wires on the negative side over to the BMS. They're still using 6 AWG on the positive side, you know, over to the batteries. Still using the JBD BMS. There's no mini fire extinguishers, and again, there is no UL listings yet. For the JBD BMS info, basically it looks like it's the same hardware. The only thing that's really changed is the software, you know, and firmware, stuff like that. Obviously version 3 is just a little bit newer. I'll put those pictures right up on the screen. I'm not going to go through the numbers or anything like that. Yeah, that's pretty much everything that I could find that would be different. All right, next we're going to do the capacity test results, even though you technically just saw them, but I'll explain, you know, my process and how it all went down. So the very first battery, all I did is I charged it up as high as I could go, and I think it was right around 57.2 volts. Once it reached that, I took it over there and I used the EG4 charge inverter to do a 0.2C discharge or capacity rate. And that all ran fine and dandy. And then when we got down to 42 volts, or whenever one of the first cells hit 2.5 volts, the shunt trip breaker flipped the main breaker and the test was over. And I got 99 amp hours or 5.1 kilowatt hour, which is obviously slightly below the advertised 100 amp hours. Alrighty, so while battery number 1 was doing its capacity test, I came over here with my cat. We opened up battery number 2 and I basically did a top balance on all the cells. All I did is I charged each one up to 3.65 volts. The reason I always do that is because obviously you want to have your battery top balanced, and it'll also give you a better or more accurate capacity reading whenever you do the capacity test. So after battery number 1 was done, I brought number 2 over there, did the exact same thing, a 0.2C rate all the way down to 0% state of charge, which again you saw. We got 105 amp hours or 5.4 kilowatt hour, which is 5% over the advertised 100 amp hour. The reason I got 105 amp hours is because it was a perfectly top balanced battery. All right, I need to make a little side note here real quick. So in the manual on page 7, there is a little note in here, and I'll just read it to you real quick. It says new batteries need to go through multiple charge cycles approximately 10 times to reach their maximum capacity. So the reason they have that note in there is probably because people are complaining they're not getting 100 amp hours, but you need to allow the battery to have time to top balance all the batteries. That's what that 10 cycles does, is every time you drain it down and then you charge it back up, they're going to be a little more in balance. Basically, you're allowing the BMS to do its job. And that's what I was doing for battery number 2, is I was skipping those 10 cycles and I just did it manually. I don't suggest anybody else doing that, you know, obviously, unless you want to avoid your warranty for, you know, opening up the battery and messing with stuff. If you just do the 10 cycles, it will balance itself out and you will get the full capacity out of your battery. Or what you can do, what I did for battery number 1, the one that we only got 99 amp hours, is just charge it up with like 20 or 30 amps up to 80 or 90%. Once you get to that number, drop the charge rate down to like 1 or 2 amps and just finish it off with 1 or 2 amps. If you do that, it'll allow the BMS time to balance out the cells, and you can kind of skip all those other cycles and then again get your full capacity out of your battery pack, which is exactly what I did. Is I charged it up with 20 amps to like 80 or 90%, and then I dropped it down to 2 amps, and I just let it go. Whenever you do that really, really slow charge, it allows the BMS to balance out the batteries, okay? So for that one, I was able to get all the way up to 58.2 volts, and I think I got a screenshot of that, and I'll just post it right up on the screen. For that capacity test, which you again just saw, we got 105 amp hour or 5.4 kilowatt hour. All right, that's using the Victron Smart Shunt. And again, if you want to go off the JBD BMS app, which I do like the feature that they allow now, is once you do your capacity test, that number will reset. For that one, we got 107 according to the JBD app. I think that was actually for both of them as well. There you go. Give your BMS time to top balance your battery. Alrighty, well there you go. That's going to be my comparison between version 2 and version 3 of the eco-worthy 100 amp hour server rack battery. I do think they're doing a pretty good job at updating, as they go. It seems like they're making updates as the community suggests, and I kind of can't wait to see what they have for in the future. I hope that they, well, in my opinion, I hope they make some bigger wires on the inside so we're not using a number 6 and 2 number 8s. I would like to see bigger wires in there. I would also like to see the little mini fire extinguishers in there, and I hope they go the UL listed route. Alrighty, well that's pretty much all I got. If anybody's interested in picking up the brand spanking new version 3 100 amp hour server rack battery, they actually gave me a code for $60 off. It is AV Joe. That'll bring your price down to $839.99. But that's only through their website, not through the Amazon links or anything like that. So if you're interested, I'll have all those links down below. Alrighty, well that's pretty much all I got. If anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, make sure you put those down in the comment section. Yes, I'm almost done. If this video was helpful in any way, make sure you like that smash button on your way out, and I'll see you on the next one. Now, I'm not 100% sure. I do think they're doing a pretty good job with all the updates that they do, and I kind of can't wait. You all right? Alrighty, next we're gonna top. All right, next what we're gonna do is pop the top on each one and compare.